Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Russia has launched another wave of missile and drone attacks across Ukraine Thursday, killing civilians, while a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile carrying a significant explosive payload flew into Poland and crashed around 80 kilometers inside its territory, prompting NATO to condemn what it called yet another reckless act by Russia. As Kyiv urgently appeals for more air defense support, President Trump has also cast doubt on allowing Ukraine to manufacture Patriot missile interceptors, despite discussing the issue with President Zelenskyy at the White House this week. Joining us now is McNamee, co-founder, Ukraine Business News Network. Good to have you with us. Let's jump right in. This latest comment, apparently in an interview to the Financial Times, President Trump has said he's not sure now. This is about actually providing these licenses for Patriot missiles to the Ukrainians. This was just a hot topic. It seemed it was going forward. What do you make of his statement there? Why the change of heart?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a change of heart as far as where his current, the momentum of U.S. increasingly coming on Ukraine's side. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a change of heart. However, what I would say is that this reflects a couple of things. Probably the most important is that Trump speaks illiberally, we could say. He spoke probably a bit too early, a bit off the cuff, and he didn't really consider, for example, in this case, some of the technical issues or security aspects of sharing technology. There's a very tight regime around international arms transfers, whether that be finished products or manufacturing. So, for example, all the European partners who who provide weaponry, American weaponry to Ukraine have had to do so with permission, even under Biden administration. So this is part of that. So when Trump sort of spoke publicly saying, yes, Ukraine needs more ballistic missile defense, so we can maybe provide, allow Ukraine licensing and to manufacture in country, there's a lot of security implications related there and technical aspects. So he frankly, in my opinion, he probably just spoke a little bit too early and out of turn. That doesn't mean he doesn't want to support Ukraine, but there are some technical and security limitations as a result of that. And also, Trump, going back sort of more philosophically, Trump it's America first. So he can say things supportive of a country the next day, pull it back. And frankly, he doesn't really personally care. And his support base doesn't really care fundamentally either. So it's unfortunate because this has tragic consequences for allies and partners like Ukraine. But fundamentally, he's willing to sort of speak illiberally because domestically, there aren't going to be many consequences for him.
Mm-hmm. But Mark, you mentioned the technicalities of it. Let's, on that front, it seemed also somewhat encouraging. We know that President Zelenskyy was already talking with executives from Lockheed Martin. We have information that Raytheon had apparently already sent experts to Ukraine, and I think also Lockheed Martin is doing the same. So could it be that the planning is happening in the background? Is that more encouraging rather than this public caution by Trump?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more context that you can have in the private sector with the companies you mentioned, and with public sector also with the so-called deep state and all of this, the more context you have, then the more concrete the relationship becomes over time. So, look, this is a step back. This is unfortunate, but I would also see this more as political and what Trump does. Trump, we've seen him. He's been president for over 5 years, including the first term. He says things. It causes a media reaction. He then walks it back a week later. A week later, something else happens. This is pretty consistent. Unfortunately, this inconsistency is consistent for his presidency. However, as you mentioned, overall, Ukraine is clearly getting on all of the defense platforms of the Western world and has gotten away over the last 4 years from its old Soviet legacy systems. This is one other area where that's happening. It's just a matter of at what pace, at what capacity, at what level of authority and autonomy, say, Ukraine or European partners would have in terms of producing Patriots on their own, repairing them, and all of the maintenance required for maintaining this possible production for the future. So, but look, at the end of the day, yes, it's not great to see this, but Ukraine's primary problem fundamentally is stopping ballistic missiles tomorrow and next week and the next months, in the next 6 months ahead. And what Trump has done with the initial agreement for licensing from last week and now seemingly possibly changing his mind as of yesterday really doesn't impact what happens this coming winter.
Yeah, and I think also that will be even more urgent, as President Zelenskyy has said. There's a critical shortage of missiles for Ukraine. At the same time, on Thursday as well, not just devastating attacks on Ukraine. We know that, for instance, across different cities, I think over 50 casualties, many dead. At the same time, this also happened at the same time when now a Russian missile seems to have crashed in Poland as well. This has been condemned by, obviously, the Polish authorities, by NATO as well. But almost 85 kilometers, something like that, in Polish territory. There were no casualties, thankfully. But what do you make of this? I mean, it seems incredible that it could go so far. I mean, this missile itself, confirmed also by the Polish authorities as Russian, used by the Russians, has a big payload on there, potentially nuclear if they wanted to put a nuclear weapon on there as well. So what does this tell us about air defense? And will this have any bearing on more systems coming online faster?
Unfortunately, it's hard to see more systems coming on, much specifically in the area of the ballistic missile defense, where it's critical. But the other areas of air defense, we are seeing a sharp pickup in both in domestic production and then as well as support from Europeans. So that's very positive. However, yeah, look, these attacks, this one from Thursday night, of course, very problematic, but this is continuing the trend of the last month. And one of the underreported stories I would highlight is less on civilians, but what Russia has been doing in the south and in the ports of Odessa. And not just on ports infrastructure, which has been really quite dramatic, but on also foreign vessels attacking. So this is really undermining the considerable progress Ukraine made the last several years in terms of getting more control over their zone in order to export all these critical agriculture and metals exports that keep the economy alive and keep macroeconomic stability going. So this has become really a problem here in the last month, and there's no real clear answer coming in the coming weeks or months either. Russia's using all sorts of different, whether it's missile attacks or drone attacks, or even more worrying, these cab bombs, these World War II era massive bombs that are dropped from ships. They're really dummy bombs, so there's no GPS to latch onto for air defense. So they're very hard to defend against, and they're quite inaccurate. But when and where they do hit, they're highly impactful. And Russia's been conducting those attacks in recent weeks with the cab bombs on Odessa. And this is really having a problem. Ferrexpo, one of Ukraine's largest metals companies, has suspended work through those ports, same with some agricultural companies. So this is really a problem for macroeconomic stability, aside from everything else you mentioned. The strike, I believe, is up to 100 kilometers deep into Polish territory. No considerable response back, of course, as these things have happened in the past as well. And then the civilian losses around the country, hitting Lviv too, hitting so far deep into Ukrainian territory, just reminding Ukrainians that there is no really safe zone in the country, even if you're near the border in Lviv. Obviously, the same goes with Kyiv here. So 74 missiles were launched. That's quite a large salvo, of course, and that's on top of about 300 some drones. And Russia has the productive capacity to continue that pace, it seems, at about a 10 to 12, roughly, day cadence of such large-scale attacks.
Mark, let me ask you one more.
Unfortunate thing. Yeah,
let me ask you a quick one. You mentioned Russia's capacity of missiles. Another one that apparently Ukrainians, Zelenskyy said there's preliminary evidence now that suggests on this attack that happened in Ukraine on Thursday, that there was actually a ballistic missile used that was produced and manufactured in North Korea. So, I mean, if that's confirmed, what does that tell us about this partnership? I mean, there's already North Korean involvement in the past with Russia. What does this missile do? If that's indeed proved correct, what does that tell us?
Yeah, that's actually quite worrying. If you think half of Russia's artillery and ammunition, and this has been the case now for about 3 years, is coming from North Korea. If they gain access also to North Korean ballistic missiles, this is a problem. Supposedly, at least, one of the issues as far as why Russia had not previously used ballistic missiles from North Korea was concerns around the effectiveness, right? I mean, obviously North Korea, very corrupt regime. What's the quality of these ballistic missiles? You don't want to be launching a ballistic missile from your own territory that then backfires or somehow impacts your own land and your own forces. So this is quite concerning, because the way I read this currently, I hope to be wrong, is that this is almost seen as a test of, let's use ballistic missiles from North Korea, and if successful, then we can access that arsenal as well. And then you have even further problems, because Russia is able to produce 60 to 70 a month, roughly, of ballistic missiles. And that's already caused enough damage that we see now, particularly in these months of lacking air defense in Ukraine. If they can produce 60 to 70, plus they can import who knows however many from North Korea every month, this is very concerning ahead of this coming winter, of course.
Yeah, so concerning indeed. But look, we'll have to wrap it up. Thanks for all that insight. Really appreciated you on our program again, as always. That was Mark McNamee there from Ukraine Business News Network. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
And thanks for watching World Talks, but do stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.